So this is a part of, for those of you who are new to this series, this is the third of our SME export talks that we're doing in collaboration with ARISE plus Cambodia. All of these export talks are aiming at sharing information that can help SMEs in Cambodia start to export their products abroad. And in total, there'll be around 8 of these events. If you just move on to the next slide right there. If you want to see our 2 previous SME export talks, the first was on social media for SMEs, and the second was on standards and certifications for exports. We have lovely YouTube webinars of both of these, and we also have 2 brochures that were completed by Guillaume of the ARISE Plus team. They're very user-friendly, very attractive to the eye, and I'd really encourage you to have a look at those for a high-level overview of these topics. Just to introduce today's event, my name is Tom Hesketh. I'm the Deputy Director of EuroCham Cambodia. We aim to facilitate trade and investment into Cambodia, particularly for European companies, but increasingly we've started working with institutions. And one of those, the webinar series that we have today is an example of just one such of those collaborations. To move on to how today's webinar will look, it will follow the same structure as our other SME export talks. We'll have a 10-minute introduction session by myself and Guillaume of ARISE plus Cambodia. And then we'll go into our 3 talks. So our talks for each of these SME export talks follow the same format, I should say. The first is a general introduction to the topic area. So this is going to be provided by FERNANDEZ of Fair and Easy Logistics and UTCC. We're then going to have an overview of the client's perspective. So we're going to have an SME that has used a third-party logistics provider to get their products to foreign markets. And also in this case, this SME has also started creating their internal logistics hub as well. So you'll see the transition from using a third-party logistics provider to developing your own in-house logistics services. And then the final section of the talks is the service provider perspective. And we're honored to be joined today by Mr. Prayag CHITRAKAR of DHL. Following that, we'll have a short panel discussion. We have a set of poll questions about how easy it is to find a third-party logistics provider in Cambodia that we hope will lead to some interesting discussions. And finally, we'll have an audience Q&A. So we do have your questions submitted when you registered, so thank you very much for those. But if you have any others during the course of the talk, please type them in the chat box and we'll hopefully get to them at the end. So if we go to the final slide for me. So just before we delve into the content, for some protocol issues, if you can't hear, there's not too much we can do about it on our end. Just kindly check your internet connection and your speakers. If we suffer a complete internet failure, which we hope will not happen, but has happened in the past, we'll record the talk and send a link to the YouTube video to everybody who registered today. If you have a question, type it in the chat box, stating who your question is for of the panelists as well. And if you're experiencing background noise or if you hear any background noise, of course, just please make sure you are muted at all times. Of course, the final part, we are interested in feedback. We want to improve these SME export talks in the future. If these are too high level, if they're too specific, we want to hear this so we can tailor them for future sessions. And if you have any feedback on that, send an email to our comms officer at the email address just in the slide here. So with that, thank you very much everyone to join. We had around 180 people registered for this, and I can see already we've got around 80 people in the event. I'll now hand over to our collaborator and partner, ARISE plus Cambodia. So Guillaume, I'll pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. So I'm very pleased so first of all, good morning everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for this third edition of the SME Export Talk. My name is Guillaume. I joined ARISE Plus in January as a trade information and advocacy advisor. I would like to start to say a few words about who we are as a project. So you heard several times the term ARISE. So this term stands for ASEAN Regional Integration. This is a project supported and commissioned by the European Union and BMZ, which is a German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. This is why you can see the EU flags and German flag in the logo at the bottom of this presentation. This project will go until June 2023 and is implemented by GIZ. If you wish to know more, we have a specific website, and we are also present on 2 social media, Facebook and LinkedIn, and we publish on a regular basis what we do, what the activities we do with the partners. So one of the pillars of the project is what we call the SME Export component. So we are currently supporting a list of 15 companies in exporting or in exporting to new destination markets. So we provide technical assistance, and we also cooperate with business association on advocacy and public-private dialogue mechanism. But we are here today in the framework of the Trade Info event. So when you will see this logo, you will know this is related to ARISE Plus in partnership with EuroCham. And we have the objective to conduct at least 8 events until the end of next year. And I'm pleased to announce the next SME Export Talk will be on food safety. It will likely occur during the first week of November. It will be very well connected to the previous SME Export Talk, which was on standard and certification. We chose this particular topic because many exporting SMEs in Cambodia are operating in the agro-processing sector. So we think it will be very relevant. For each event, each talk, we publish a brochure. So basically, the brochure provides an overview of the topic with a certain number of key facts. And we really wanted to make like reader-friendly. And it is available on 2 websites, ARISE Plus and EuroCham. If you go through this brochure, you will know where to find more information. That's also another objective. So today, I'm also pleased to inform you about a specific training on e-commerce, which is also for Cambodian SMEs. So through this training, it will be a way to learn more about e-commerce, how to interact with an international shipment company, and also to know more about the best case practices. The registration link will be shared in the chat box. In case you want to know more, you're very welcome to reach out to me, and I will be pleased to transmit your request to the relevant persons. As you can see, the date of the training is on October the 13th. Getting back to the topic of today, during the preparation of this event, I was actually reading a report driven by the World Bank 3 years ago, and there was a section on logistics provider in Cambodia. And the World Bank conducted a survey, and they approached a certain number of companies. And they find out that more than 2/3 of companies in Cambodia are actually having a relation with logistic providers. The reason for this is when it comes to international transport, it is needed. Also, custom brokerage is also very important. And I will say more everything related to administrative procedures, and also the management of warehouse, probably because you need certain expertise and it can be also costly. Another conclusion of the World Bank is these figures are very similar to other countries in Southeast Asia. So this is not a particular case, I would say, in Southeast Asia. Vietnam and Thailand have a similar share between outsourcing and in-house. So this is my last slide, and I found it very interesting. So what you see is what we say the World Container Index. So a consulting firm collect data from the main trade routes in the world. And with this aggregation of data, they can calculate the average, what is the shipping cost of containers. And as you can see on this chart, in Q3, Q4 2020, the cost has rapidly increased. And there is a combination of factors for this. The way of consuming and the restriction imposed by government due to the pandemic has led to a disruption across the supply chain, and it has had different impact, demand for shipping, shortage of empty containers. As a result, there is a congestion at international ports, and there is delays, and the cost has increased significantly, and obviously it has some impact on SMEs that wants to import. So I wanted to conclude on this, because it was also why we do this event, is to discuss, I would say, current challenges due to the pandemic. So that's all for me. Thank you again very much for joining us today. So Tom, over to you.
Okay, Guillaume, and thank you very much for that introduction. Again, I really encourage everybody to have a look at the brochures produced by ARISE Plus for some of those facts that Guillaume has just mentioned. Okay, so very interesting to see that there has been that huge surge in logistics costs since COVID-19. And I think those statistics, those intro statistics, will lead us on well to our next speaker, Thomas Fernandez of UTCC and Fair and Easy Logistics. So Thomas is our trainer as well for our logistics and supply chain management course. So we've worked with him in the past, and we know that he'll be able to share some excellent information today, and perhaps give some more explanation to the information that Guillaume just shared. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, let's start with the slides. Okay, so as you saw in the previous slides, then, and as Tom already mentioned, then I'm involved in logistics and supply chain already for over 35 years, and I've been doing business in Cambodia since 1992. So I'm very interested in the logistics in Cambodia, and now we will be talking about exports. Export of Cambodia consists mainly of manufactured goods. Cambodia does export fuels, mining products, commodities, as well as agricultural produce, but the majority, by far, is manufactured goods. This is interesting for our talk today about exports. Next slide. So what does Cambodia export? What we see here is number one, knit or crochet clothing. Then we have gems and precious metals. Then we have clothing again. Then we have footwear and leather articles. And then we have other articles. So this is really the main export product of Cambodia. These figures are from 2020. Next slide, please. So export has been growing. When the COVID pandemic started, I received many calls from Cambodian companies. Oh, we cannot sell our clothing products right now either, because the customers in Europe didn't want to buy, the shopping centers were closed, or the suppliers in China could not supply raw materials. Oh, what do we do? So there were a lot of consulting events at that time. But when we look at the figures now, exports from Cambodia have still increased, right? And so this is a very important part for the Cambodian economy and, of course, for each company involved in it. What comes next slide, please, is the view specifically on export. So what we need is a logistics services provider, LSP. LSPs are also called 3PLs, third-party logistics providers. You will have heard this term before. What does a 3PL or an LSP actually do, and why do we need them? Logistics are outsourced. We just saw in the previous slides in 68% in Cambodia. Worldwide, the figures are always showing that more logistics is being outsourced than in-house. There was a survey by the Fortune 500 companies, or with the Fortune 500 companies in America. and 80% of those outsource their logistics. So this is not only something for small companies, this is for companies of all sizes. And what do these logistics providers actually do? What they do is they provide warehousing services. Warehousing are often outsourced, not always. Whether we want to outsource our warehousing or not depends on issues such as investment, on expertise, and so forth. It's a business management decision. Packing can be outsourced. Many, especially SMEs, prefer to do this by themselves because they know their product very well and they want to know that this is packed correctly. Others outsource this. And then we have the transportation to the port or airport. SMEs don't often have their own trucks to deliver to the ports or airports, so they outsource this to transportation companies. Not all of them, but many of them. And booking with shipping lines or airlines, this could be done by the exporter themselves. We use a logistics company for that. I come to that in the next slide, what the advantage is of using, no, not yet, please. Yeah, of using a service provider for that. And then the last thing, very important, export customs clearance. We definitely want to outsource that because customs, this is a whole different talk, is not an easy thing to do. You have to classify your goods, you have to fill in the forms, you have to have a connection to this Asekuda system, or better outsource that. And now we come to the next slide where we see why we would want to outsource to a logistics service provider. Cost reduction. Why is it cost reduction if we outsource to a company that will also make profit on this? I can tell you. If you have a container per month to Europe, you contact the shipping line and request a rate, you are a very small customer for them. The logistics company, they book in that month maybe 100 containers, maybe 1,000 containers, depending on the size of the logistics company. They get totally different rates and also different service. So you outsource this booking to the logistics company. They have lower rates. They still make profit, but what you pay is still lower than what you pay directly. Same with the airlines. The logistics provider has expertise that you may not have. I just mentioned customs clearance, the export customs clearance, certificate of origin, Form A, Form D, Form E. How to do that, how to apply, how to key this into the online services. They know that. Warehousing. Yeah, you think it's easy, but that depends on how many SKUs, how many different items you have. Yeah, so many exporters will just want to concentrate on selling their goods and making their customers happy rather than having to deal with all these logistics questions. When you use a logistics service provider, you are able to offer to-door services, DAP, DDP, Incoterms. Your customer in France, he wants you to deliver the goods to their warehouse in Paris. How do you do that without a logistics services provider? Right? So they offer worldwide services and can arrange this for you. And then there are logistics challenges. This is a very vague term. That is because there are so many different problems that can happen when we export something. The goods did not go on board the airplane or the vessel. The vessel is delayed. New regulations, whatever. The logistics provider usually has experience how to deal with that, and they can solve problems for you. Next slide. So when you want to choose your logistics service provider, what do you want to look for? There are so many different companies. How do I make my choice? And what we want to look for in a service provider, any service provider, are these 5 dimensions. Now, this is called the SurfPol model. This we use for all service providers, and there are more than in total 9 for logistics service provider, but let's keep it simple today. Tangibility. Tangibility means the appearance, the physical facilities. What does their warehouse look like? Is it even clean? Their equipment, do they take care of their trucks, their forklifts, and their communication materials? Do they have the right ICT? Then reliability. We want to know that they perform their service reliably, right, and accurately. Yeah, so you want to book this shipment and they must follow your instructions. Every shipment is different, every customer is different. For them, they have to follow the instructions. Responsiveness, their willingness to help, how good do they respond to your requirements. Assurance, you must be able to trust them. Yeah, you must they must give you confidence. If you don't trust in your logistics provider, you don't know whether your customer receives the goods on time. And empathy means that they have to care about you. Really, yes. Now, they need to know that this is important for you. Every shipment is important for you. You need to make your customer happy, otherwise you have a problem, right? And they need to understand that. Next slide, please. So when we look for a logistics service provider, we also have cost as a factor, of course. So what we have here is these 6 factors, what you want to look for in a logistics service provider when you choose your logistics service provider, and that is the question we want to answer today. Reliability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy, tangibility, and the service cost. Yes, so this concludes my little talk about the overview of choosing a logistics provider for SMEs that conduct export. Thank you very much.
Okay, Thomas, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I think the other thing that I most took from there is that we're certainly not here to advertise third-party logistics providers, but I think, as you just very well explained, for most companies, using a third-party logistics provider, using a freight forwarder is just simply the most cost-efficient way of doing it. It's not efficient to do it in-house for the majority of companies. And I really like those 6 areas to select your third-party logistics provider. So going on from that, I think it actually follows on very nicely to our next talk, which is the client's perspective. And we're pleased to be joined by Miss Setha Kong of Conferel, who can tell us a bit more about her personal journey and Conferel's journey in navigating this world of freight forwarders and logistics providers. So, sorry, I've moved the slide on there. So, Setha Kong, the floor is yours.
Okay, so greeting to all guest speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm pleased to join the webinar about the logistic provider for export. I'm from Conferel. So let me share you today as our customer perspective. So please, yeah. So Conferel is founded by Dr. Hai Liang. He's a doctor in pharmacy and pathotherapy in France. Actually, Conferel is an agriculture product processing. We founded since 2001. We have more than 250 farmer for support our production from many provinces. Our main specialty is focusing on palm sugar. We have GI palm sugar from Kampong Spur. We have compote pepper. We have herbal tea, and we have GEM. GEM is compote effective microorganism. Yeah. So our main purpose to creating a conference is to have improved the livelihood of the farmer. Yes. So next slide, please. I'm gonna talk about the challenge we made during our operation for export our product to our customer. Our main customer are in Europe, and then USA, and also most part of Asian country like Japan, Singapore, China, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and some we are now working to do in Myanmar also. Yeah. So actually we know that the shipping line is very tight regarding the schedule, and also because of the rate is very increasing and also very limited space, it makes that our company have some loss on the operation. Yeah. Another point we also got during this time is the increase of the processing period. That means when we submit our document for export, it takes more longer than usual. Yes. To do the export for agricultural product, we have to process for the phyto certification from Ministry of Agriculture, and also we have to do that we call CO, certification of origin of the product through Ministry of Commerce. If we export the product to the European country, we should register for the right. So our main challenge in documentation is when we submit the document, we have to wait very long. Yeah. Another thing is about the custom formality. That means when we got the phyto certification and CO, we submit those documents to the custom to process for our export. This is also a very challenge for us. We have to find someone who are really good at knowing, as Dr. Thomas said, that special product has their code. If we miss one code, it's remaining, declaring to another kind of product. So we have to be very careful on putting the correct HS code. Yeah. One more thing about the information of our client. That means we have to know very well that the client of the country of our destination client need some document that can help them to decrease the import tax. Yeah, because some country has using the form differently. Like we have the MOU with the Asian country. We have form E, form D, or etc. Yeah. So we should know very well, and if the client is new, they ask us to help, and we should find the reliable source to be able to provide the correct document for export and import to their country. Yeah. One more difficulty is about when we export our product to Africa. We have some kind of document calling waiver, or some country, even in Africa, there are countries that they need different calling of a term of the document. Yeah, like you see in here, we have waiver, BSC, CTN. Yeah, BSC is bordeaux de, I don't remember in English, sorry. So I just let you know later. I will let you know later. So another point is about the forwarder experience. Some forwarder, yeah, in our country there is not much forwarder who are experiencing in dealing with agricultural product. When I joined Conference, we have only one or two specific forwarder who can help us do it correctly and in a very satisfactory time. Yeah. But now we have a few, yeah. We have 3, 4. Depending on also the country, yeah, there are some forwarder that are experiencing with European country. There are some forwarder that have a very good experience in Asia country. So we have to be carefully on the choice. Yeah. Another one is staff. Yeah, when you recruit staff, the newly usually they are not very good for their work. We have to be with them, to show, to guide. However, when I joined Conference, we have only one people who can help us on this task. But now we are coaching them. Now we have 2, even 3, yeah, that can perform this task very well. Yeah. So next slide, please. Yeah. Talking about export, we should know the term that we can provide to the client. Yeah. The forwarder could be also identified by the term. Yeah, there are also forwarder that very good in some term, for example, FOB, free on board, CIF, cost, insurance and freight, DDP, when you deliver the product until the customer warehouse, and then the export. The export is just you prepare the product at your warehouse, and then the client will assign their forwarder to come pick up the product from Conference, something like this. So this year we have a more reliable forwarder than the previous year. So we try to how we say, to contact more forwarder, to learn about them, to meet them, whether they have their source also reliable, so that we can work with them and we can trust them. Yes. Next slide, please. Actually, I have been working for the export almost almost 2 3 years. There are still some surprise when we prepare our export documentation, and also we contact to the forwarder. Here you see in the slide we have many points on that, mostly related to the shipping line. Yeah, shipping line has a different fee for local charge. Local charge means when you export your product, you have to pay. You have to pay the operation of the product to be loaded into the container and into the vessel, yeah, into the ship. So we should know very well of this charge. If you are negligent to ask them, you would pay more local charge than other shipping lines. So if you are let's say if you have more questions to ask, then they will reply us also. So if you don't ask, you don't have the answer. So don't ever how we say guess. Yeah. So all these points, for example, for LCL, for the demurrage, detention, and storage is 3 different terms. Yeah. Demurrage means when you have your container, your product in the container. Let's say the container arrive at the client port. Your client cannot process the document to be clear the product on time. So the shipping line will charge you the demurrage charge for the container and for the detention, because you cannot return the container on time to the port. You cannot return back on time, so you have to pay for the demurrage, detention, and storage charge. So as responsibility of seller, of the shipper, you have to know, and you can follow up when your product are arriving at the client port, and you can also request the shipping line to free more day. Normally detention and demurrage is only 7 days, but sometimes you can request for the free day until 21 days, or sometimes the shipping line can also give you 14 days only. Yeah. Another experience. Yeah. For the port congestion, you will have a shortage of container. It means that the container is already arrived in the port, yeah, but they cannot discharge the goods yet. So if you would like to take the container to loading your product to be export, you have to contact the forwarder in advance, very early, so that you can have the container for your good. Yeah. This also, you have to be careful on choosing the forwarder. You have to know which forwarder is good with shipping line. Yeah. Because all the forwarder are not working with all the shipping line. They have their preference. So if you know for the preference, you can request the exact shipping line that you want, and you will not miss the container that you like, and also the schedule that you also prepare it in advance. Yeah. Another point is about the container cleanliness. If you work with a reliable forwarder, they will check the container before the container arrive, at your warehouse to load your product. Yeah, but there are some forwarders still they miss to check. Yeah. So
sorry, we're just going to have to. Would you be able to summarize in just 30 seconds the remaining items on this slide? We'll just have to move on.
I'm finishing.
Apologies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Also, another point is you should know the product that have to be controlled for the temperature. So you have to choose a dry container or refill container. Yeah. Another thing is about the type of the product also that could be dangerous, good or hazardous. So you have to take your product carefully. As I show you in the photo, you see there is the packing with the corner, the four corner. You have very carefully on the cable, and the notice. Yeah, the notice is also playing very important role that the people who transport it will not stack all the product on your good. Yeah, and you have the seal. The seal number is protecting your product from your warehouse into customer warehouse also. Yeah, another last point is about the Incoterm. Yeah, when you have proposing the Incoterm like I showed you before, the FOB, CAF or DDP, you can study the cost and then you can propose to your customer and the customer will be happy with you. Yeah. So your product will be also arriving safe at your customer warehouse. So I think that is all from my point. If you have any question, yes, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Perfect. Setha, thank you very much for that overview. You can just put yourself on mute, Setha. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Setha, if you just put yourself on mute. Yeah, thank you very much for that overview. And it seems that there are substantial challenges for all companies, anything from cleanliness of your container to lack of experienced staff to fluctuations in the rate. And I think, again, that leads nicely on to our final presenter for this session, who represents a company that arguably fixes a lot of these challenges. So I'm pleased to give the floor now to Mr. Prayag CHITRAKAR, the country manager at DHL Express Cambodia. So Prayag, the floor is yours. I look forward to hearing the solutions that DHL puts forward. Please, anybody who is not speaking, please do put yourself on mute.
Thank you, Tom. I hope I'll be able to finish my presentation on time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me today. My name is Prayag CHITRAKAR, and I'm the country head of DHL Express Cambodia. Welcome to today's presentation on the logistic provider for export. Next slide, please. Well, as I represent DHL, so let me briefly introduce DHL in Cambodia. We have 3 business units in Cambodia, and I represent Express Business. We started our operation in Cambodia since 1993. We provide time-definite international express services for both import and export documents and parcels. We are the only express company in Cambodia with our own dedicated chartered flight 5 days a week. We have 3 service points in Phnom Penh and also in Siem Reap, Sihanoukville, and Bavet. Our business focus is cross-border delivery of time-critical documents and parcels. Next slide, please. I want to share with you the study done by McKinsey. The cost of global parcel delivery, excluding pickup, line haul, and sorting, amounts to 70 billion, with China, Germany, and the United States accounting for more than 40% of the market. However, the market is not just large, it is also highly dynamic, with growth rate ranging between 7 and 10% in mature markets such as Germany or the US, almost 300% in developing markets such as India. Study also suggests almost 25% of consumers are willing to pay significant premiums for the privilege of same-day or instant delivery. This share is likely to increase given that younger consumers are more inclined to choose same-day and instant delivery over regular delivery. However, the remaining 70% of the consumers still prefer the cheapest option of home delivery. For all this, last mile delivery is the key differentiator for e-commerce players and startups. Next slide, please. E-commerce and digitalization amidst COVID-19. Driven by the pandemic and travel restriction, businesses from all industries are transforming the way they do business. They are establishing a strong foothold in digital presence. The logistic industry is no exception to this. From generating waybill to contactless pickup to digital billing and payment to 24/7 online customer service to shipment tracking, businesses are able to acquire all the necessary information online. Omni-channels, retail behaviors are constantly changing. Web grooming, where customers research online but buy in store. Showrooming, where customer research in store but buy online. All these have implication to logistics, which requires dynamic delivery, fulfillment, return option, data integration, data sharing among all key stakeholders. So it could be manufacturer, retailer, as well as logistic provider. The omni-channel 2.0 has recently surfaced, emphasizing not just the mere existence of the business across all channels, but with an emphasis of cross-channel quality and proficiency, bringing entire enterprise together and personalizing customer shopping experience consistently across all channels. The convergence of B2B and B2C. The B2B operations are rapidly changing. From sales to customer interaction, from fulfillment to order delivery, all are transforming. B2B transactions are more data-driven and less dependent on traditional one-to-one sales activity. While B2B world was already moving online, COVID-19 accelerated this transformation. Although there are some differences between B2B and B2C, fundamentally B2B and B2C are about the same thing, selling goods to the people, and the expectation of those two customers groups are increasingly overlapping. Now, emphasizes on sustainability. A report by the World Economic Forum predict that by 2030, the growth of e-commerce alone will result 36% of delivery vehicles, generating an additional 32% of carbon emission. Currently, the equivalent of a truckload of plastic from product part up to packaging enter the ocean every minute, quadrupling by 2050 if no action is taken. With these predictions, companies, government, and customers are all taking steps to eliminate the environmental harm to business as usual. For logistic industry, there's increasing emphasis on process optimization, zero emission logistic, and design logistic facility, which uses sustainable material. Our parent company, DPDHL's long-term goal is to be emission-free by 2050. We have purchased electric vehicles, even electric aircraft from aviation. In Cambodia, we have already purchased 3 e-vehicles, which is on the road since 2018, and we are planning to purchase more e-bikes and LPG tuk-tuk to move forward for the last mile green delivery. Next slide, please. Okay, suggestion for SME when exporting. It is highly recommended for SMEs to have necessary knowledge and information of the target markets before they even get into the particular market. As per the study, different consumer in different countries behave differently. Now, if you can see, it's a little bit small, but if you can see, Canadians prefer cheaper to pay everything, whereas German consumers are very suspicious of fraudulent checkout. Australian customers are concerned with shipping costs, but Korean consumers are concerned with slow delivery. Therefore, SME must understand the basic knowledge of target market they are going to target, in future. Next slide, please. Common mistake for SME when exporting. There are multiple areas like we can look into it. Not fully understanding the customer's journey and experience. It is important to understand customer journey from awareness to purchase in order to build a loyalty. A positive experience of consumer require optimal planning and strategy prior to implementation. Many SMEs do not incorporate such touch point into e-commerce strategy, therefore affecting experience, satisfaction, and repeat purchase. Lack the necessary knowledge and information of the target markets when attempting to break in. Breaking into new market requires primary and research information to make informed business decisions prior to making a launch. Key information such as de minimis value, commodity restriction, consumer behavior, and potential industries growth are essential. Failure to develop local market knowledge result in slow sales, custom-related issue, lower customer satisfaction, which entail loss in business. And also, SMEs does not develop a clear e-commerce or channel strategy. Choosing the right channel to initiate your e-commerce journey is equally important. There is a number of options available. It could be your own website or listing on marketplace. Now, like talking about the marketplace, DHL has recently signed the MOU with Ministry of Commerce. They are developing the marketplace where SME can register there and then ship it out if they do not have their own website. Right? Each option has different advantages to its own. So choosing the right channel to fit the business is an aspect business need to consider. In our experience, many SMEs choose to embark on their own website, but later realize they lack the technical resources to support this journey. Therefore, they are more likely to abort. Now, lastly, choosing the wrong logistic partner. We need to know the B2C consumer are always on. They are always on online, so they are very up to date. Express shipping emerges as the single most important determinant for e-commerce customer satisfaction, as they become more demanding to receive their orders as soon as possible without having to wait too long. On top of this, they demand a reliable return option when the shipment have issue. For example, if the shipment contains wrong order, the consumer can return with ease. Next slide, please. Okay, this is my last slides where what are the recommendations from our side? There are multiple steps. Step one, understand the customer's journey. There are three key phases in e-commerce customer's journey: discovery and information, conversion link, and purchase and fulfillment loop. Research shows that 87% of the customers are likely to return after a good delivery experience. Customers are always on, which I mentioned, therefore fast, flexible, easy, plus great customer experience result in repeat business. You need to know your market, which I mentioned in my earlier presentation, earlier slides, that look for a reliable partner who provide country guides for e-commerce businesses, which provide essential local business information and explain the various categories worth looking into. Choose the right channel. Select the channel which are fit to your business model and current resources. Either channel, choose the partner who could help to support in system integration and data integration. Check your store health. Once your store goes live, there are a number of aspects which need your attention to check to ensure the highest quality. Your transportation partner must have a checklist for businesses to follow so that the businesses can ensure they provide fast, reliable, and accessible platform to the customers. And last but not least, get a reliable logistic partner. Look for a partner who offer international shipping with a global network. They must offer customers easy and efficient custom clearance. They must offer easy return, which encourages customers' trust and more spending from the always on customers. So these are the things SMEs need to pay attention to. Thank you for listening. Before I leave, just wanted to highlight what Guillaume has mentioned earlier, that DHL Express is planning to run an online training to SMEs called Power Up Your Potential in conjunction with GIZ on 13th October. This is mainly focused on e-commerce startup, and I highly recommend you to join this workshop if possible. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect, Prayag. Thank you very much for that that overview of the sector. And yes, one of the questions I was going to ask was, how can an SME understand their customer journey? How can they know their market, their store health? And that training could really be an opportunity for them to do that. So for any SME on this, yeah, I'd really encourage you to take part. Okay, so we move on to the next section. We're running a little bit behind time, so what we'll do is have a 20-minute Q&A session. We'll finish at 11:20. And if you have any questions at the moment, please type them in the chat box. But what we'll do is start with just a question that I think we've already got one from Narissa Panimas, and it ties into a general overview of how logistics has been affected by COVID-19. And so my first question will be, well, it's taking from Narissa, will be to all panelists, but perhaps we can follow the order of Thomas first, then Conferel, and then DHL. And what I want to know is, how have Cambodia's export logistics been affected by COVID-19? So very broad question, panelists, you can tackle it any way you would like. But Thomas, I would open the floor to you at first to give the high-level overview of what the major impacts on export volume have been from COVID-19.
Yes, thank you very much, Tom. So the export volume, as I already showed, has still increased during COVID. I have the figures for 2020. I do not have any figures for 2021 yet. No, they have not been published yet. What happened when the COVID pandemic started, and as I said, people contacted me because their products either had no supplies or no demand, is that the products changed. They first changed to produce other goods that were now in need. It has gone back to mostly to the traditional products which they used to produce. The increase in export also means increase in demand for containers and space on the ships, as well as space on the airlines. Now, in the marine industry, we know that there is what they call a shortage of containers, which actually is an imbalance. Yeah, in Germany, we cannot return the empty containers to the depots because the depots are full with empty containers. So we have the problem here in Southeast Asia that we cannot move the shipments out. If we get containers, the ships are full. Air freight is with another problem, because most of air freight is transported in the belly, in the lower deck of passenger aircraft. And passenger aircraft now have a lot fewer flights than they used to be. So it is more difficult to find cargo space for air freight. And the demand and supply, of course, makes the rates increase a lot. Yeah, so it becomes much more expensive to export now because of this.
Okay, Thomas, yeah, thank you for the high-level overview. I hope, Nerissa, that gives a high-level response to your question, at least. And now we'll move on to Conferel, a firm who is exporting already. And from your own perspectives, how were your company's exports impacted by COVID? What were the new challenges that arose as a result of the pandemic?
Yes, thank you for the question. For our export, it's not really affect very much. It's that we have some delay due to our packaging. Some packaging for our product is delayed due to we cannot find the schedule to export for our packaging, and that there are some delay for our schedule to export. Regarding the shipping line, yes, the schedule is very tight, and that make the cost very high, so we are also in difficulty in deciding whether we export this week or next week, something like this. Yeah, and this it make our profit less than before. Yes, sure. So.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the honest appraisal. Understandably, a very challenging time for all companies, but great to know that Conferel is still managing to export and that it's not been too disrupted by the pandemic, from what you said. So that's great to hear. So, as the final person for this particular question, yes, Mr. Prayag from DHL. I guess you really have the opportunity to see the global overview of how logistics has been affected by this pandemic. And so if you have any further information to share here, it would be very appreciated. How have Cambodia's exports been affected at a high level?
Okay, Tom, so as I mentioned earlier in my presentation that our business focus is only on the express business, and we are working with the air freight only. We do not do the sea freight or road freight, so I'm not able to comment on that part. But for us, as I mentioned in my presentation again, that like we are the only company in Cambodia, the express carrier who has our own dedicated flight, right? So even though like the COVID hit, like we do not have much impact. 2020, we see the export growth was quite high. However, in 2021, the growth number has gone down. As Tom highlighted that, yes, there is a space issue for many freight forwarders. However, this doesn't impact us because of our own dedicated flight. However, in a global way, because there is a spillover from the sea freight and air freight, so our express volume is very, strict in terms of accepting the shipment. For example, in the past, like we were able to accept shipment which is weighing up to 300 kilo. Now the weight has reduced to 100 kilo because like there's the space issue from the regional hubs. But from Cambodia part, like I think there's not much impact for us. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, interesting. Well, good to hear again that despite these these global changes that are happening as a result of the pandemic, both yourselves and Conferel have not been too badly impacted. So I hope that same could be said for the people listening in on our call at the moment. But that was definitely positive to hear from my part. We did have one follow-up question actually from that, and I believe this is for Conferel. Moseni So asked. When you had your delays to your packages being delivered, were there any disputes as a result of that? And if so, how were those delays resolved? So I'll ask it first to Conferel, and then perhaps I'll ask it to Thomas at a higher level, how an SME can address problems arising with delays in their goods being delivered. So Conferel first for you.
Yeah, so the question we very thankful for DHL. Yeah, we know that DHL had a very good service on the express. So yeah, we turn to DHL every time we have problem on the shipping line. We come to DHL to request them deliver the good very quickly as possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And apologies, I didn't know that you were using DHL. That was not meant to be an advertisement of DHL, I promise. So just for the higher level, perhaps Thomas Fernandez, if you're able to just give an overview of if you're an exporting SME and you run into problems with your shipment, you run into problems with your logistics provider, what are what can you do to resolve any disputes, to resolve any delays?
Yes, so if you have a delay, it is actually now during these problems with the pandemic, mostly not the fault of the logistics provider. We like to blame them because they are our direct window, but it is often the airline or the shipping line that rebook, they don't honor their confirmed bookings. Now, we had containers from Southeast Asia to Europe. And of course, for example, from Sihanoukville, there are no direct ships to Europe. They will be reloaded, for example, in Singapore. Now, the feeder to Singapore was delayed by 1 day. It could not make the connecting ship, the mother vessel. What happened was the container stayed in Singapore for 2 months until the shipping line could find space again. That is a delay, of course, causes a big problem. Now, you have to negotiate with your customer whether he accepts that or not. If it really goes to a legal dispute, it depends on the Incoterms. Yeah, the Incoterms, I don't know, Tom, whether you want to say more about that later. I saw some questions about that. If you sell on basis FOB Sihanoukville, FOB Phnom Penh, that means that the risk transfers to the buyer. So legally, you are in the clear, right? So you can say, no, I delivered according to the Incoterms, your problem now. But of course, you want to keep the customer, so you have to negotiate with them. If you sell on basis CIF or CIP, then you also, the seller pays for the sea freight. CIF Hamburg, you pay for the sea freight and the insurance until the goods arrive in Hamburg. Now here you need to know that the risk, even though the seller pays for the sea freight, the risk is when the goods are on the first vessel. Yeah, will usually be the ship, can be the truck, and so forth. Right? So that is the legal aspect of the dispute. If the delay is en route, then it's the buyer's problem. Now, you want to keep the customer, right? So then it goes into negotiations, right? And this is up to you. Does that answer the question, or is there a follow-up question on that?
I think at a high level, it answers the question. I imagine every one of these disputes will be different, but I hope that for Maseni, it gives you an idea of what you can achieve if you do run into a delay. It sounds like a lot of the time it's not the fault of the third-party logistics provider, and really it depends on a case-by-case basis. But if you have a specific question on that, send it to us, and we can send it to our panelists as well if you're looking for more specific information. It does lead on to a nice question though, Thomas, because I know that some people on this call will be very familiar with Incoterms, but others on this call would have never heard of these before. So I wonder if you could just give a very brief introduction to them and where people can go to find out which one they should be using.
Okay, there are currently 11 Incoterms, and there's not enough time to explain all of them. Yeah, the Incoterms are made by the International Chamber of Commerce, and I'm certified in the Incoterms. I'm going for becoming a trainer in the Incoterms, and then I will offer that through the EuroCham training program here in Cambodia. We also have this course in supply chain management, which EuroCham Cambodia offers on a regular basis, and the Incoterms are part of that, right? So there are many practical and many legal consequences of what Incoterm you choose. So yes, the question is very good, but it would be beyond the scope of today's event.
Indeed. Okay, so I've just put in the chat box an overview of Incoterms for those who want to learn a bit more. Indeed, it would be a long session if we delved into all of those, but you can have a quick overview on the chat box. So we have 7 minutes left, and I think most of the high-level questions that we got in the chat box and the questions for registration have been already addressed. My final question was one that we got in as a registration, and I'll aim this at Conferel. And what I'd be interested in is, as an SME that uses both in-house logistics as well as third-party logistics, what are the two situations where you use the different one? When would you use a third-party logistics provider, and when would you use your own in-house logistics capabilities?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, we have our own team for export tasks, but we still need to have the outsourcing on the booking with the shipping line, because every shipping line you have certain level, something like the quantity of the container that you would like to use. So the shipping line will not deal with you as you have demand only 1 container per week or 2 container per week. So this they refer us to their distributor, I mean the forwarder, the third party. Yes. Regarding the document preparation for the permit, export permit, we use our own team to prepare those tasks. Yeah. It's more easier to outsource, because we know the product, we know how to pack it, we know how to arrange it, and also we have to work closely with the forwarder outsourcing to tell them what type of container we need, which schedule we need, and how to arrange the pallet. Yes.
Tom, I saw there is a question. There are a few questions, but there was a question: is it a good timing for local SMEs to focus on or try to export small packages abroad? For that question, my answer is yes. This is exactly the right time. If you need any help, because DHL, we do provide a special rate for SMEs, right? So if you want to discuss on how this will help SMEs, then you can reach out to us separately, and then we will definitely help you. And for me, because of the pandemic, that nobody is able to travel as they wish, this is the really good time to start exporting your goods.
Okay, perfect. Prayag, thank you. Yeah, I was just about to address that one to you. So, Madine, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so we've got just 3 minutes left. And what I want to do for those final 3 minutes is actually get some data that we can all use. So we do have just 3 quick poll questions that should be popping up just now. And I'd be really interested for all of the participants on, and we have around 85 at the moment, in your answers to these quick poll questions. And what we'll do is share the results of these poll questions with you afterwards. So you should just see the first one pop up now. There's 3 questions in total, and we'll get the results immediately. Okay. So you can see them. They should pop up on the front, and they're also in the chat box. I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to fill in. This will be please don't just answer the bottom one in the chat box. You'll also see if you file up in the chat, you can see the other 2. The first question is, what is the key factor for you in choosing a logistics service provider? The second is, what is the primary challenges you face when choosing a logistics service provider? And can we do a screen share of the results at the end? Or we just have them in the chat box? Okay. So we have many responses I can see for the last question. So for participants, please do file up in the chat box to get those other two. And also panelists, you'll be able to see the answers in the chat as well. Okay, so it's building up now. Okay, so please do fill in those questions towards the end of this. We have 24 for each. Thank you to those who filled it in. It is quite interesting to see the results so far. Overall, it seems that people still find it difficult to find a logistics service provider. So we hope that this webinar has gone some way to easing that, but we will be addressing this topic in future SME Export Talks as well. So where you can go to actually find the logistics service providers in Cambodia, because it's clear that that is still difficult. It seems that for the majority of the people on the call, price is the most important factor when choosing a logistics service provider, followed by customer service, and then their time to deliver. I think that's very much aligned with some of the discussion points we had. And then the final question was, what are the primary challenges you face when choosing a logistics service provider? And the major one is it's difficult to find market information. So I hope for the logistics service providers on the call, this is interesting information. It's definitely interesting information for us to design the next series of SME Export Talks. If we go and what we will do is share the results of these poll questions to everybody who registered to this webinar. So if we just go back to the slides. I do not think, sadly, we'll have time to answer all questions now. Any that we haven't managed to get to during this webinar, please type them, or send them to us via email. We've got the ones that are already typed here. Also, when we share the link to the YouTube recording, if you have a question and you post it under the video, we'll get back to that question as well. It's not meant to be just a one-off video. But overall, I just wanted to say a big thank you to, perhaps we have all the panelists turn on their video. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who took part in today's webinar. Thomas, Prayag, Mr. Setha Kong. It was really great to hear your three perspectives. I hope for everybody on board, you got a nice overview of what to look for in a logistics service provider, the challenges that you may face, and some of the ways that you can mitigate against those challenges. Overall, thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the 4th SME Export Talk, which will be on food safety, and that will be in the first week of November. So panelists, thank you so much. Participants, thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one. So have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.